we go.
Testing. All right. How's everyone feeling right now? Now I'm very intentional when I ask it. Anyway, I think that's my takeaway as well in general. Thank you so much. That was insightful, Miss Sabariah. Like, in the relationship that we have with our kids, essentially, it's to be intentional in our parenting, right? Like, we do have a purpose. We're not just saying it just because, like, how's your day in school? But then do we actually know what we're asking? Again, if you have any questions at all, the QR code is at the back of your lanyard, and that shall trigger our panel discussion. And on that topic, I am gonna invite the rest of the panel on stage, if I may. So, mentioned just now, we have two more who's going to be with us. Can I invite our guest of honor first, Dr. Wan Rizal, Member of Parliament, Jalan Besar GRC. And also Miss Nura J. My goodness. Miss Nura J is a former MOE primary school teacher. She's also a TV personality and associate group director at Propnex, and also founder of Perlista, an all-ladies fashion, or rather hair salon, pioneering in halal hair care. And it doesn't stop there. We do a lot more as well. We're going to touch that in just a second. Actually, you know, when I first met Miss Nura J, right, I'm like, you're giving me Barbie core, Barbie fashion. Have you guys seen Barbie? At one point, Barbie herself, or was it no, her friend, that delivered this spiel about how women are expected to do so much and keeping it together. And I feel like you embody that. Has there been at any point, going off of what Miss Sabariah said, prioritizing self-care, have you ever felt pressure to perform? I think first and foremost as a mom, given all of the other titles that you also have.
I mean, of course, I'd be lying if I tell you that I don't have, I don't face pressure. But I think it brings me to this important point of, I like what Miss Sabariah said about having an open communication with children. And at home, I try to also, the thing is, we expect children to share with us things, but we are their first role models, so it needs to come first from us. So I do share my vulnerabilities as well with my children. Yep.
I think that allows them to also see that we are very much available, right? And we're not just this authoritative figure. We have got the first question. I think I'm going to start with a question first. When and how, this is from, I think we're all going off anonymous. Okay. When and how do I start the conversation with my child on their pathway? Perhaps Dr. Wan, do you want to take this? What do you think?
Okay, first and foremost, a very good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's a very big group today, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to share my perspective. I would say I'll come from the father's perspective. It's a bit different from the mother's, simply because I think a conversation with our children differs. I see my wife have a different kind of conversation with my children, whereas I have another different way of doing it. And we complement each other. And I think that's the beauty of a relationship like this. You don't, cannibalize each other's ideas, but actually we give them a variety of ideas to start with. So conversations varies. I have 4 children, by the way, and their age range is, the eldest is doing his O-levels now, so he's 16, and my youngest is 6. So you are right, the conversations differ from each stage they are in. So I have 2 teenagers and 2 one in primary school, the others in kindergarten. So clearly the conversations differ, but I think the ones that, in particular for this question, is about the pathway. And I think we talk about pathways. I would say that whichever age they are at, the pathways must always be given that the fact is there are multiple pathways to success. And I think this is the most important idea that I have in mind. When I saw the topic for today is a successful parenting. Actually, I'm really not that successful at all. But the definition of success is something that is worth thinking about. Because what is success to us parents may differ. Because we have different ideas of what success is. And I think for us as parents, it's important that we don't pressurize or throw this idea of success to our children as a binary thing, win or lose. And I think that's not the way for it to go, at least for me. And when I talk about a pathway in terms of success and the conversations on this, especially for my teenagers. I think they are more, I think they are ready for this type of conversations at this stage because I think they are having a better idea where they are going to next. Especially my son who's O-levels, but he's a totally different position. When I ask him, what's next, he gives me that blank stare and he doesn't know. And I talk about education all the time, in Parliament, and I sit in the GPC for education. So I tell him, you can ask me any questions, I can answer you, every pathway that you want, I can. And he just says, no, I have no idea at this stage. But the mom manages to get something out of him, and I think that's when my wife shared with me. And the conversation we have with him about success is really along the same line of, it's just about doing your best. And when we talk about the pathway that they want, we don't set any. I think you mentioned earlier that they change their ambitions quite a bit. I changed mine many times too. I think you all will agree, you all had the same pathway. Even today, I still have ambitions of doing something else, and it will not change. But the principles that we want them to have, the values that we want them to have, cannot change. This one is no-go. You must have certain traits and values and principles that you want to imbue in them, and you can then confidently let them do what they want. I think this is important. Yeah.
So you would say that's like the foundation and like from where you can build up. But you mentioned you got 4 kids. Wow, mashallah. What would you say then is the significance of recognizing that each kid is unique and different, and obviously they're all have their own interests and capabilities. As parents, why is that important to know that each kid, they are different?
Yeah, so having 4, they are totally different. Each one of them have their own interests, and none of them align with mine sometimes, when I think about it. But one thing's for sure, that when you have this mindset, none of them are the same. I think it also gives you a different set of expectations. Let me share with you something we just did. So I had my third child, my son, who's in primary 4. So he has this problem, he doesn't speak in school. Of course, at home he's chatty and all that, but in school he doesn't talk at all. So from kindergarten all the way to primary school, the teachers will always feedback that, hey, we don't know what's happening with your son. He's very quiet. But I said, it's not like this at home. And we really couldn't find out why. So he doesn't contribute in class. His work is not so good, and our expectations of him actually was quite low. And we told ourselves it's okay as long as he's a good boy, he has good values. That works for us. Then over time, I noticed something. He had a similar trait to mine. I have a doctor's handwriting, they call it. So everything is short form. Everything is short form. I write everything short form, so if they see my notes, they realize that ni doktor punya tulisan lah. But I noticed something similar to what he has in mind. Our handwriting is about the same. So we sent him to a counselor, and he was, and we went for some tests, and we found out that he's dyslexic. And I also found out that I was dyslexic, through that. But what was very obvious was that as the moment he got the intervention in primary 4, so he's in primary 4 now, he started in January. And when I met the teacher midway in June, the teacher told me, because I was from that school 20 years ago, so I know the teacher. So they told me, your son suddenly can speak in class. Wow, really? What happened? I said, I don't know. He now contributes, he talks in class, and he does his work well. I said, wow, amazing. So this was in June. So I noticed that the intervention helped, and knowing that we gave him that platform to do this actually sparked it even further. He has different interests. He's the sort who will come to me and say, I want an ant farm. And I will go with him and start an ant farm. And we have an ant farm at home, okay? Just to, because he has this interest. He's always inquisitive and all that. But what happens here is that, so recently he just did his exams, and he shared with me, so what are your grades like, So he said, wow, I think I did quite okay this time round. So when I saw his grades, he had never passed his maths and barely passed his English. Malay jangan cakap lah, Malay is a struggle for him. But the grades overall, improved a lot. He's in his 80s and 90s now, which is something that is a big jump. And I was like, wow, the idea that we don't close doors to them, because sometimes the parents, we give up lah, and they say, tak apalah, dia macam gini. But the moment you find out that there's a proper intervention for him, and it works, it does wonders. And I cannot apply this same thing to each of my children, because they all have different interests, different likes, and all that. But this is one of the things I wanted to share, because this is hot off the oven. I'm still motivated by what has happened to him. And I think I wanted to share this story to you. So don't give up on your children. They can surprise you when they are given the proper support and platform.
May I share? If I can add on to what Dr. Wan Rizal shared, from a school's point of view, we find that the parents who are very willing to share with us what's going on, very open with us, we find that it's a lot easier to come to help the child find success very quickly. Because sometimes, so for instance, right, in a primary school or even in a secondary school, some parents have told us, I don't want to inform the school because the school will label my child, and therefore then my child will be discriminated, etc. Then we say, oh, it's not like that, perhaps maybe, I'm not sure where that notion may come from, but today it is not like that. The educators are very enlightened, and I think what we want to do is, if we know beforehand that info is given to us because there is a formal diagnosis, the school will then ensure that all the support structures are there in place to welcome the child to school at P1 or Sec 1 and so on, because we already know they will match them with the right teacher who has been trained in SEN and so on and so forth. So then there's a lot of empathy, there's a lot of support that be given, and then when we speak about intervention plan, it is not a scary word, it is really support to ensure that the child can find success in school. Because when the child is finding everything is like around them, it's not something that is accessible to them, it does affect their self-esteem, and therefore they have their own methods to cope with it, to strategize to cope with it, because this is not very easy for me, this is my coping mechanism. But the minute they know, and then we know, and then everybody works together with the child is always at the center of it. When schools make decisions, when we work with parents, the child is always at the center of every decision that we make. So when you tell us, when you have the info, or when the school approaches you and say, oh, I think we should make a referral or a diagnosis, some parents will say, no, I don't want, because then my child will be labeled. It's not quite like that. You will find that the school support structure now, we have school counselors, we have SEN officers, we have other allied educators to support our teachers. And it's wonderful when you go to class and you see children of all learning ability and readiness are all there in the same classroom, wanting to do their best, because we really believe that they all want to do their best. They don't like to be one where it's very hard to know what's going on. So I think it's just to keep that openness when recommendations are being made, etc. But of course, if you have certain reservations, that's fine. You can also share that very openly with the school as well, what your reservations are. Yeah.
If I could then ask Ms. Sabariah, from your perspective, right? I mean, going off of the same example that Dr. Wan Rizal has already shared, because sometimes you have kids where they still don't know what they want to do and what they want to explore. And as parents, naturally, of course, we want the best for them. And we tend to set probably high standards and aspirations. How then do you advise, from your experience, striking that balance between having high aspirations and also allowing the kids to explore their interests?
Perhaps I will start when I was a teacher in a junior college. So I was teaching students who were 17, 18. And they are older. They already have their own set of thinking. And I remember a student that was finding it very difficult, and she was not doing as well as she normally would. But when you have that conversation, you realize it's because the parents want her to do something that she's not interested in. And as part of like maybe resisting it or maybe rebelling against it, I think all her performance dipped. But I think the minute you can have that conversation with the parents and say, maybe your child wants this, maybe can we have, and parents say, oh, but you never told me, so then you realize it's something just ensuring that communication opened up, and then you realize that the child will come out, because today you'll find that whatever that you read or you come across, people will use the word thriving and flourishing. We want our children, because when we use the word success, it sounds as if, hey, what is success? How do we define success? But when we say we want our children to thrive and to flourish, it's about them connecting to what they are inside, what are their natural strengths, what they are really good at. So if you have a child who's very kind, but then, in school, they will be appointed the peer support leader because this person, even at 8 years old, can connect with people in the class, has this beautiful ability to do that at 8 years old, then jadi peer support leader because they see their strengths, right? Then eventually you know that if this person were to do a career survey or career preferences, what will come up will be helping professions, that kind of thing. And they say, oh yeah, I seem to just be able to connect with another human very quickly. They will find that kind of strength. So I think it's about just exploring some of these things that you have to just allow that to happen. And sometimes we do talk to parents as well to sometimes just let the children be if they're not ready, because it's really not about what they are at 12, 16, 18, 19. We are so used to that, kan? PSLE, that O-level, must be ready by then. If some children are not ready, it's perfectly fine. Just tell them you do your best, but of course you must have certain standards. As long as you have discipline, you have good values, you enjoy going to school, you enjoy learning, that's most important. And then you have something to go. And then when your results come out, then you say, okay, which secondary school, why this secondary school? Oh, because they have an aeronautics program maybe, or they have a coding program. Oh, I really like when they do, environmental education and they do it in a way that is through tech. I kind of like playing with tech. So then why not? So again, we look at all that. So you will have on the MOE website, School Finder page where the child can really go in and see what the school is offering and go by that for a start. And you also know that nothing is fixed, right? Because careers can change, we will find different interests as we go along. So that's okay. Maybe by 40, they would have a beautiful connection that they were into tech at one point, and then after it was into helping profession. And then somehow by the time they're 30, they're ready to put everything together, maybe, right? So we just have to allow them that space to discover themselves.
Thank you so much. Miss Nura J, you come from many, many different experiences. You are an educator yourself. How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
How old are they?
I have an 18-year-old teenager, 8-year-old primary school boy, and a 4-year-old preschooler.
Wow.
So basically, I'm also all over the place at home. Okay? But I'm just looking at the question there.
Yeah.
Can I actually
Of
answer
course.
that?
Please take it away.
So the question is, we seem to have so many avenues, efforts and interventions for students to do well in school. Now, what can parents do to ensure a good outcome? But firstly, a disclaimer, I am not a perfect parent.
I don't think there is,
yeah.
honestly, right?
But here, I feel that the trickiest part would be to motivate your child after the experience failure. In example, a disappointing exam result, or when like my son lost in a soccer match. So this is tough because mulut kita ni kadang-kadang gatal sekali nak cakap, you see lah, yeah, that's why your results are like that. You're always watching TikToks on the phone. Yeah, it's very itchy. And then like for Oma, for my son, for that matter, yeah, bang, the thrashing, bang, yeah, no contact with the ball. You need to be brave. So this is something that I myself have to refrain from saying lah, and to just let them reflect and ask a simple question. How did you think you did just now? Was that your best shot? And you have to listen actively without judgment, without punishing, and without criticism. So, and that's when then that's when you sit down with them and said, okay, what do you think? How do you want Mama to help you to be better? Okay, Mama, like he looks forward, again, we're in the primary school context, he looks forward to the December holidays because, Ma, there is some soccer clinics, soccer workshops. Can you sign me up for that? So again, it comes from them. So with Naila, my 18-year-old, okay, Naila, your chemistry is not so good. Do you need intervention? Do you need tuition? Yeah, okay, let's go for tuition. So it comes from them. Yeah, so there's some reflective, so that they can, not only are they managing their emotions, but it's also to enhance their emotional intelligence within them. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You know, when you mention about, firstly, your kids, they're all of different ages, right? And the things that we say maybe to one kid, the other child might take it a different way.
Oh my God, you are correct. Just yesterday, I actually eavesdropped their conversation between my son and my 4-year-old daughter. Yeah, Zeda, so what are you good at? You know, Kaka is good at studying. I am good at soccer. So what are you good at?
And you manage that as a parent?
No, so I was just standing by waiting for her to answer, and her answer surprises me because within them they also know what they are good at. So she said, I know I'm good at choosing books for Mama to read, and she's right. So I said, she is right. So I think that as much as we know which paths our children can go and explore, they also know within them what they are good at. Yeah.
So allow it to happen. Let them have their conversations.
Yes.
And when it's time to intervene, you will come in.
Yeah.
When you mentioned about, of course, now in this setting, it's so easy, right? In theory, we feel like we might have it down pat with the resources that's given. But on a day-to-day, yeah, you're right. Especially for us mothers, we are more emotionally driven. The things that we say to our kids, sometimes we didn't think much about it. And that might affect their mental health.
Correct.
Right? And that's something that we're placing importance on. Going off of this next question as well, someone here has asked, how can I push my child to excel without instilling so much pressure, the fear of mental breakdown, and also how we manage our expectations and how we relay our emotions as parents? Any one of you can take it. You want to go off first, Ms. Nura J?
I think first and foremost, it is important to normalize imperfections, to tell our children that if you want a breakthrough, you need a breakdown. That fear it means that you are going to grow. I think this is very important, so that they are not afraid of failures. So this is the thing I feel if we want to motivate our children, is all through your communication with them, and to let them be open with your vulnerabilities as well as theirs. Yeah.
You want to add on to that, Ms. Sabariah?
I think something that I share with students in school is to view exams, national exams, as progress, not perfection. I think when we use that very often enough, I think I mentioned that language is very powerful, the choice of words that we use. Sometimes we're not quite sure where they get this idea from, but they think that they must get an A to be seen as good, or they must get an AL1. Anything else is not good enough. They grow with that, and then they take it away. Maybe it could be amongst friends exchanges. Maybe even at home we don't speak like that, but they may get it from other sources, right? So we have to assure them it's about progress, not perfection. Which means that from one test to the other, we want to encourage them, because we also don't want them to go away like, okay, so I'm going to, just step back, give up, and then that's it, right? We want them to continue, say, oh, look, it's okay, this is what you're getting now. What's the next test? When's the next test? Can we then set a goal together? Sit down and say, let's set a goal. Let's keep it realistic. How about maybe extra 5 marks? Do you think that's doable? So to tell them that you can break things down into smaller parts, because it becomes doable. They say, oh, actually, it's not that bad. Because if they are getting 45, and then they think that they must get a 91, looks like it is like unrealistic, right? Within 6 months, and then they say, oh, I cannot do this. Then they just give up. And we don't want them to do that. We say, okay, look, when's your next test? Okay, they say 3 weeks later or 3 months later. Okay, what do you think is realistic? You think 50 is okay? You think we can do this? Where do you think we can get that mark? So we help them, because mental breakdown or something like that, when they say it's anxiety, is because in their mind, in their heads, it looks so big. Oh, I cannot get across this. It looks just so far, so wide, So we break it down. Oh, it's just a small step. It's a small step. It's a small step. So we break it down for them. And then we give them big ideas, like it's about mastery, it's about progress, right? You want to get better at this, don't you? Which topic is it that you are good at? Maybe you want to focus at that first, that kind of thing. So you set the goals together with them, keep it small so that they know that it's about progress, one step at a time. Keep it manageable.
I absolutely love that. I think firstly also make sure that we as parents are in the right state of mind. And yeah, when we see things in a macro perspective, it can get quite scary and daunting. But when you break it down and you take it one step at a time, it's problem solution, basically.
So when we get their report books, right, we don't just, oh, you failed your maths, I noticed. Or how about noticing the one that they're good at? If they tell you, oh, I failed this, they say, oh, but I noticed that this one you have improved. Just change out the conversation a bit so that they know that we see more in them than just that one, maybe that failed mark or something.
All right, here's the next question. Many families are bound by the conventional belief that grades are all that matters. They inadvertently join the rat race and the vision cycle continues. Care to comment? Who wants to take this one?
Okay, so I think it goes back to this point, does grade matter? Of course grades matter. Come on, it's Singapore, kan? I can say all I want, but you all know there's a PSLE, there's an O-level. But what we want to let you all know is that despite all these exams that are along the way, it is not just the exams that define you. It is throughout your career, because the pathways to success is actually very varied here in Singapore. I can be a failure at something, But if I work hard enough, I can go into a line that I'm really passionate about and can do really, really well, and that is something that is more important, chasing your passion. Maybe I share a bit one story like, grades is everything, correct, I remember. So when I was growing up, I remember I cried quite a lot because actually very simple, last time when we go primary school, cikgu write on the board, kita copy je correct or not? You just write, and it's four letters, and I still get it wrong. Every day I get it wrong. So my parents were worried, why is this boy tak boleh belajar ke apa ke, bodoh ke? So we changed. I changed classes to, I don't know how thick the classes were, and it didn't solve my problem. And until a later stage when I learned how to, break words into smaller ones, and I can see things better, and I figure out words better as I grow up. But these are all macam exploratory lah. But what happened was, throughout that whole journey of me struggling, I remember that nak pass tu betul susah. I really cannot pass any exam. And my mother was, I think, Asian parents, how it's like, right? You marah-marah, but I think after a point of time, she also macam give up lah. But I think she changed her stance completely. She told me, you don't have to pass. And I think she set a target for me was what, 20 marks. I remember lagi, 20 marks je. Dapat 20 marks je, tak apa, boleh. And it started from there. It started from 20, then it became 30, then it became 40, then I still cannot pass. And she told me, actually, you tak bayar 50 marks pun, 49 and a half. You know why? Because the cikgu will give you that half mark and you pass, right? Or you key in the computer back then, it become 50, And that was all that I needed. That I needed to push me and beyond. And we go through what we call a tipping point in life. In life, there's a thing called a tipping point. When you reach that tipping point, suddenly it goes beyond. And I think I hit a tipping point because after that 14 and a half, boleh pass apa? The glass ceiling broke and it became a lot more. And I think that became a very big motivating factor for me because I always want to strive for something big from then henceforth. Because I will remember the days I really cried and struggled. But I saw a question on dyslexia too. I just want to share that dyslexia is actually a spectrum. Mine is not so bad. Mine is my vowels are all over the place. I can figure things out, but I need a context. Jadi kalau tak ada sentence the word itself is very difficult for me. So I need a sentence in my brain. So kadang-kadang tersasul sikit and all that. But in my mind, that's how I compute things and sentences are being met. But I need context. So when I see people with dyslexia, I think my son has proven to me that you need that kind of intervention and support. I had also back then, when I was in secondary school, I had a teacher, Mr. Zainal Sabariah. He was the ex-MP. So he was the one who taught me how to write short form. He was a geography teacher. So sama juga, geography back then, you write on the board, and I had to copy the notes on the board, But then he said that, actually you just need to write short form. So we learn how to write population population panjang, right? So for me, my brain is POP, ada dua. I write number 2 on top, so it means population. Or integration, I put INTG and then I put an N, tak payah the whole thing. And it changed me completely. My study skills completely changed, and I know how to actually maneuver myself better. And after that, suka belajar pula. And I think that's what we need. First, as parents, I think you need to set realistic expectations. At the same time, say all you want about motivating. Actually, what's important was that my parents never compared. Dia tak compare me with someone else and someone else. They did at the start compare me, my cousins, because I live in a very big family. So my cousins are macam, when I was younger, they are in university lah, in poly lah, and these are comparison. But I think she stopped all that, and it gave me a lot of freedom to decide and go things at my own pace. I was from a normal academic stream, so it was a pace that was comfortable for me, that allowed me to actually find my own passion. So don't be discouraged if your child goes to a certain path. You never know where that path will lead you to, as long as they have the right passion and what you mentioned earlier you imbue to them the right values, the right character, and I think inshallah these things will propel them even further.
Man. Thank you so much. I love these personal stories. If I could just quickly tap on and maybe share a little bit of mine as well. When I was in school, naturally I'm not book smart. On the academic side, I struggled quite a bit. But in my early years in primary school, I was doing quite all right. I don't know if it's like the banding that I was in, but I was topping the class. And when I topped the class, my parents celebrated. Like, they were so proud and they celebrated. And then I realized when I hit primary 5 onwards, I was starting to dip, right? And I started getting disappointed because I was craving validation from them. It wasn't much of the academic side, but because I've seen how proud I've made them before, I was afraid of what they would think of me afterwards. So maybe if I could ask Miss Sabariah, is there a right way to celebrate successes and achievements in a way where we don't tell them that this is all that there is, or it's not always going to be all highs all the time?
I think the idea earlier about progress, not perfection, is about how we respond. I think importantly, there's also the other part where, where we reward them with maybe like a big makan because, okay, you did very well, then we go out as a family to celebrate. That's all fine and good. But if it goes around that part where it is only certain types of successes in our mind that we celebrate, then they will say, oh, you mean others are not so important? What if they just caught a beautiful goal or a hat trick? Do we celebrate that as well? We don't, right? We say, oh, it's just a game, right? So it's also, again, what is it that we celebrate? And then they say, I'm doing it because of that reward. So take it away because we want that motivation to be intrinsic inside them. You got to light up that fire that I want to do it because it's really fun. Or I get a really high when I solve that thing that was so difficult. 2 bulan tak boleh solve, and then now I can solve it. You want them to get that high, not because there's going to be a big celebration or things like that. So we should, maybe perhaps, I wouldn't say we should, but I would say maybe perhaps we downplay those things. That external reward, you'll get a toy if you do this. Then they pitch it with like, oh, if I do this, then it's like that. We do away with all that. Instead, words can be very powerful. Oh, well done, the effort that you put in. I don't think it's the mark that matters, but it's really, I saw you working really hard on something. I guess it comes back to that Muslim worldview, it's lifelong learning. So we, in whatever field it is, in whatever regard, in whatever is it that they are doing, it could be even a simple CCA, they do something, they get a pin, they bring back, they tell you happily. Do we also value that? Or do we have a different response when it's that compared to the report book? So what is it, right? And Hari Raya is the worst time because there's a lot of comparisons going on, So, we all should do our part, It's always about, what is your child finding happiness in doing right now? What is your child pursuing? Don't have to say, berapa result, berapa AL, that kind of thing don't have to, the conversation doesn't have to be like that. As a society, I think we have to change. What we ask of others have to also change. But at the same time, we want to encourage one another, motivate and celebrate what is good. So again, it also would change our conversations time Hari Raya. I think the comparison thing, that's very important.
Oh man, you just triggered something for me. I dread Hari Raya every time when I don't do well. But you're right, we have to change as a society. Okay, I wish we had more time. There are a lot of questions, but we can always continue later on during our networking lunch. Before we wrap up this panel discussion, can I get a takeaway each from you guys? Maybe we can start with Nura Jade.
Okay, I don't know whether this is relevant, but with us, with adults, we go to work because we want the desired income, right? For children, they understand that they go to school, they have to score good results and perform, but please do not ever downplay their passion and interest. So maybe I just want to share my story, because sometimes their interest might change, might evolve, and it's very important to be understanding. Perhaps, like, for example, for Omar, my husband, he's very involved. He's a soccer dad. He's very involved in Omar's soccer journey. And then that one day, it has created a little bit of conflict within the family. I've asked my husband's permission to share, and he said, okay, share. Okay? So Omar wanted to explore badminton, much to his father's dismay. So his father was scolding him, no, you're not focused, you have to be focused. You look like Cristiano Ronaldo. Dia ada main badminton tak? And mothers can scold children, but when we see our husbands scold children, cannot, So I started become rebellious because I feel like, because I was also a teacher and I feel that he's young, he should explore as many sports as possible. So I became the rebel. I am the one who, so when my husband asked, what you doing? I'm booking badminton court for him. I want to play badminton. Yeah, but I also know that what I'm doing is also wrong in terms of partnering when it comes to parenting. So I didn't want to bypass my husband as well. So what I did was I went to his soccer coach, Omar's soccer coach, and I said, is it wrong for Omar to explore badminton? And he's like, hey, no, Nura, it's good. I think because it complements soccer. There's agility, there's hand-eye coordination. And I'm like, bro, my husband's going to come 5 minutes. You're going to speak to him, okay? So he said, okay, I'll get it settled. So I think it's very important to not downplay it, because whatever interest, whatever love that they have, it's really membuat dalam mereka. Yeah, it's not about studies, but this passion will drive them to thrive academically. Like he knows, oh Omar, you see, you are better at soccer and badminton because you always go for practice. It's the same thing you have to apply for your studies. Yeah, thank you.
It's a really good point. I mean, the partnership between parents.
Yeah.
From me, I've seen that conflict before. And as a child, that was confusing to me. And of course, then I have my favorite parent, but now as a grown-up, then I see things in a macro way. But I feel like that's another topic that you guys can bring up also during the networking session, the partnership and how to create a strong unit, because I feel that cannot be broken between the husband and the wife, the partnership to raise or to create a healthy environment, and when and where to discuss matters with you guys are not able to agree. Dr. Wan, maybe you can share your one takeaway, please.
Yeah, so my takeaway for you all is actually my prelim grades. I remember my prelim grades was 4C and 1B. 4Cs and 1B. And my first C, I already shared with you, is compare. Don't compare with others. But the second thing we like to do is like, we like to compete. Kadang-kadang this competition is not, it's okay to compete with yourself, but the moment you start to compete with others and it becomes something that is beyond the expectation or beyond the level that they are, you know their abilities, and you will make them compete to a certain point, they can break. Even athletes, you put a world record and their personal best is so far away, and you make them want to reach that stage, they will break. Where all they need is to break their personal best. So please don't compare, don't compete. The third C, don't criticize. Kita suka criticize. Sikit kritik. I think that's parents, right? They call it nag but I say it's criticizing. And criticizing can go both ways. I think it's good to criticize, but you need to coach. You criticize, but you coach. Because it's okay to criticize, but if you don't give them an avenue to improve or any tips or hacks to improve, it won't go anywhere. So you want to criticize, fine, but coach them. Coaching is important. Every one of us goes through that. We need some form of coach. If you need to get an external person to be the coach for them, why not? And I think this will help, because don't burden yourself. As parents, kadang-kadang kita nak burden everything on ourselves. Don't. To me, I have a support system. My parents remain to be a support system. Kalau semua tak jalan kan, panggil nenek dengan datuk lah. It will work, you know. And remember that we are not going through things alone. In the coaching setting, you have one head coach, but you have many other coaches that helps out the coach. And that is the team that you want to make sure that is strong. You and your wife, and of course the people around you, your parents. If you need tutors to help, why not? You know, it is a team, right? So, compare, compete, criticize, these three things, no 3 Cs. The 4C, I feel that we tend to do is that we tend to complain. Okay, complain is the complain macam mana tau? Kita complain to others about our children. This is a no-no. No way you must complain about your children to others. What happens at home remains at home. You call complain to others, I think it's not fair, especially if they find out about it. They will find out about it really. Sekarang it's start a world it's really, they will get to know about it. You don't complain. And I think this is a relationship, a trust that you want to have with your children. You break that, you lose that. So nak complain, okay, semua kat dalam bilik kita complain with each other, that's great. And I think that's something that I hope you all remember, because I am guilty of it previously, and I think I stopped about that. The fourth one is actually positive lah. The fourth one, I feel the importance of doa, and I think this is not about doa yourself, but I think it's very important to have a family doa kind of thing, because you can only ask for help from one, right? But a doa to me is when you have this opportunity to be together. Because when you doa, actually, I realize one thing. Of course, you doa in Arabic, but when you can doa in bahasa Melayu where everybody can understand, and when you doa, it becomes very relevant to everybody. And you know, adik-beradik kan semua together, they hear it, they know. In a way, you are setting expectations without setting expectations. You are setting hope without setting too high a hope, because they know that there is somewhere, somehow, these things can be a factor that will help you. Which comes to my most important point, do things together. The doa is not doa alone, doa is doa together. That means you must have that family time together. Have your family dinner, that's great. Makan together, solat together, these are things that are key at the end of the day. So I hope this is helpful. Remember 4C, 1D.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wan. And Miss Sabariah, take it away, please.
I think finally, if nothing else what I shared earlier is useful, just one takeaway I think that might be useful is our Muslim worldview. That is, we are committed to lifelong learning. And when we are committed to lifelong learning, how do we help our children fulfill their potential? It is not at PSLE, O-level, N-level, ITE, Poly, JC, tak. It is really about what we hope they can become when they are 30 and 40, and that's our hope and aspirations for them, and then we have to guide them through that. There will be moments where we will be frustrated, we will be angry, we will be upset, but the good thing about children is that they are also very forgiving. So there's always a U-turn button, okay, boleh U-turn balik, okay, I'm so sorry, Ibu said that, Ayah said that. So I think it's also the ability to sometimes understand that if you want to have the culture of thinking, kita nak ada budaya tegur-menegur di rumah where, it's okay, adults can also make mistakes, that's fine. Then we encourage that culture at home, and you know that they will also be like that in school and when they are interacting with others outside, because it all starts at home, where diorang tak mudah tersinggung, diorang tak mudah macam get easily offended, because we have seen people who are very successful, they are usually not easily offended. They will go with the flow. It's okay lah, cikgu kasih feedback, very good. Okay, thanks cikgu, terima kasih. Tomorrow come back again. Tak takut, they are like that. They are fearless. They are not easily offended. Diorang tak tersinggung. They will go for majlis ilmu. They will always seek for knowledge. And that's the kind of spirit that we want to have in our children. So I think on that note, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was just looking at your kids and they were smiling, or I'm not sure if that's embarrassment.
They better be, but they're giving me feedback on how Ibu can do better. So that's happening later.
I love that. I think it's pretty evident from today's discussion that this journey of parenthood, it's ongoing, it's dynamic, and it's really about finding that delicate balance of guidance and autonomy, and also encouragement and patience, And I think you have to be kind to yourself also as parents, and when you're in a better state, and then we can be better examples for our kids. Thank you so much, Ms. Sabariah, Dr. Wan Rizal, and Ms. Nura J. We're gonna start our networking lunch in just a second, but before this, can we have a picture together? Is it okay? All right, let's do like a Wi-Fi situation. Oh, macam mana? You're gonna come. We face here? Okay, come. All right, are you guys okay to be in the picture? Consent is everything. No, if you're not, just cover your face, lah, honestly. Okay, let's have a photo together. Yeah, we turn around and then. Is it okay? Very quickly, but in the photo, it'll look great. Stand below. Let's do that. Boleh? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Big thumbs up, big smiles. Candid shot, is it? All right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you all so much. Thank you. All right. Ms. Nura J, Dr. Wan, and Ms. Sabariah, can I invite you to your seats once again? Okie dokie. Once again, Yayasan MENDAKI aims to support your parenting journey in achieving your child's aspirations. So all of these resources are available online. As mentioned, we are going to send them over to you via email. And you can also scan the QR code on your lanyard if you want a more direct access right now. Okie dokie? All right, so here is the networking lunch. I would say take the most advantage out of this. This is your opportunity to tap into a wealth of knowledge and experience. At this point, I'm sure you have all met your human libraries. They all come from different growth sectors, digital, caring, green, and they are your living resource for the next hour. And they'll provide some insights and inspiration to your kids and also facilitate parenting tips immediately, okay? We will have lunch served later on. If you're worried about, oh, lunch is right now, great. Or rather brunch. So, siapa lapar? Boleh dengar you punya perut dari sini tau. I know you all probably belum makan. We are going to serve brunch. Now you can just stay in your seats at your tables. And if you're worried about your kids, they're in good hands. There are childminders and they are also being served lunch right now. Okay? So for this next hour, have at it, ask all the questions, and our human libraries will be there to assist you. I'll see you guys in just a second.